This is Part 2, Episode 176. In that battle, the demons lost half of their 72 demon gods. Many of them had died, because our Night Temple had obtained the divine throne of eternity and creation. As for us humans, almost 100 powerhouses of the ninth step died in that battle. With both sides suffering heavy losses and the demons unclear about the origins of the divine throne of eternity and creation, they ended up retreating. When the Dark Era began, we finally gained the opportunity to rest and heal. Just when the war had ended, over 60 recovered corpses out of the dead ninth step powerhouses were still rather complete. They were our seniors, or even our ancestors, and they had laid their lives down for the survival of humanity. If it were not for the efforts of these ancestors, we would not exist today. Back then, the Alliance had only been founded recently, and it was nowhere as stable as right now. However, at the same time, there were many pieces of powerful equipment and magic tools that had been passed down since ancient times. Our Night Temple possesses a scroll that has been passed down since then. Upon reaching there, young Haohan's eyes shone with a strange light, and he became slightly emotional as well. Everyone listened with their full attention. They knew that young Haohan had reached the crucial part of his narration. The scroll is called a scroll of spiritual transformation. It sounds nothing special, but the magic recorded in the scroll is a forbidden spell, and under certain circumstances, it can even be regarded as a supra-forbidden spell. There were just far too few forbidden spell scrolls. Ever since Long Haochen had begun cultivating, he had only seen them 2 or 3 times. As for supra-forbidden spell scrolls, he had not even heard of them before. He only knew to a certain degree that the difference between a supra-forbidden spell and a forbidden spell was like the difference between a supra-divine tool and divine tool. A supra-forbidden spell could even turn a war around. It could do the impossible. However, what young Haohan said next shocked everyone present. However, this supra-forbidden spell is death magic. With that, even Long Haochen had almost cried out. Everyone present was shocked. The several dozen people gathered in the meeting room were all representatives of the Temple Union. They were the strongest group of people. However, when they heard death magic, a chill ran down their spine. Some of them even shivered. Death magic had left an agonizing lesson in the history of humans. It would be strange if they had not reacted like this. This was also the reason why Long Haochen was repulsed when he found out the Tower of Eternity was an inheritance of death magic. Young Haohan continued, "You must have all guessed it already. The effects of this death magic supra-forbidden spell is to transform the dead into undead. The reason why it is a supra-forbidden spell is because when it turns the dead into undead, it can reconstruct the souls of the deceased from 24 hours before they had died as souls of powerhouses. At the same time, they would possess the same intelligence as when they were alive. This spell has a range of 100 square meters. Connecting it to the recovered corpses that young Haohan had mentioned earlier, everyone understood what he was going to say, but they were still in disbelief. They listened to him quietly. I know you can't understand this. It's not just you. Back then, the leaders of the 6 temples also refused to use this scroll. Death magic has left us humans with some agonizing memories. It's possible to say that if it were not great disaster before the Dark Era, the demons would not be able to force us into considering something like that. Even the glorious church was destroyed under the attacks of the demons. From a certain perspective, the glorious church is the predecessors of our Night Temple. Long Haochen glanced at Kia instinctively. He discovered that his companions of the bright glimmer of hope were looking at her as well. All of their expressions were slightly strange, but there was more firm support for Long Haochen. Young Haohan said, a fierce debate arose in that time. Some people supported the use of this scroll. Although we would turn these powerhouses of the ninth step into undead, they would just be living through a different method at the end of the day. As long as they could live, it would be equivalent to recovering more than half of the strength the Temple Alliance had lost. Even if the demons attacked us once more, we could stop them with greater ease. Another group of people believed that using the scroll was blasphemy to these deceased seniors, preventing their souls from resting. And, once they became undead, who could be certain enough that their personalities and memories would remain the same? Just in case something happened, wouldn't it plunge humans into an absolute disaster? They would not even be able to maintain the newly established temple union. There was great conflict between these two opinions. In the end, the final decision was made depending on how far the demons had retreated. Back then, the demons had not retreated completely. Instead, they stopped 250 kilometers away from the alliance. After the remaining powerhouses of the 72 demon gods had retreated, they left their demon god pillars at the boundary, and it seemed like they could return at any time. Under such circumstances and the support of some of the deceased's families, they used the supra-forbidden spell scroll in the end. Many people instinctively held their breaths when they reached there. Although they could guess the final outcome, they were still shaken up by the closed situation back then. The scroll of spiritual transformation succeeded. A total of 63 powerhouses of the 9th step became undead and condensed their own souls of powerhouses. Although their bodies were still damaged, their strength did not drop by much through their souls of powerhouses, and they possessed certain powers of undead. They had witnessed the might of the supra-forbidden spell. Back then, basically all of the revived powerhouses were unable to accept this matter. They had fallen in battle as humans, true humans, but now they had become undead. What were they supposed to be now? Fortunately, before the scroll was used, the 6 temples back then had already reached an agreement, and had announced the temple's recognition of these people, bestowing them the title of eternal heroes. And they had agreed to specially create a place for them to stay and move about in. All they needed to do was assist the Alliance when the demons attacked, and the Alliance was unable to hold them back. Faced with the persuasion of the 6 temple heads and some of their family, the eternal heroes finally began to accept this reality. To their families, being able to hear them speak and see them live as undead was also a form of happiness. As a result, the 63 eternal heroes were arranged to stay in a secret location, so they could rest. This place is the interior of the Knight's Sacred Mountain that you all know of. The existence of the eternal heroes was definitely the greatest secret of the Temple Alliance. Yang Haohan had brought up this secret clearly, because he felt the pressure from the demons was just too great, that they needed to use the power of these eternal heroes. For that moment, the members of the Temple Union looked at each other. Most of them found that their heads were too full to think. Just like the battle back then, borrowing the power of undead was definitely a major matter to the Temple Union. And just like what Yang Haohan had said, if this matter was disclosed to the world, it would cause a huge impact to the Union. For example, if ordinary citizens found out that the Union actually had such a great undead force, what would they be able to understand? Fear would definitely reign over most of them. In particular, the army would suffer a heavy hit to morale. After making arrangements for the 63 eternal heroes, the 6 temple heads passed strict order to contain the information. At the same time, they decided that only future temple heads would know about this secret. And if the Alliance was not facing absolute doom, they would be forbidden to use the power of the eternal heroes, so they can slumber in the Knight's Sacred Mountain. Soon afterwards, the demon army really did retreat, and the eternal heroes never appeared on the battlefield ever again. The news of their existence has always been passed down to successive temple heads, until now. Yang Haohan finished introducing everyone to the details and returned to his seat. At the same time, he looked at Long Haochen. To his relief, Long Haochen appeared to be extremely composed after hearing everything he said. He was not overly surprised, nor did he show any disgust. Technically, it was Long Haochen's turn to speak as the chairman of the union after Yang Haohan had finished talking. However, before he could speak, Long Qianyin cut in first. I disagree with using the eternal heroes. As he said that, the divine knight stood up and glanced at Yang Haohan in displeasure. He said, "Let me stress this first. Although Xingyu and I are also heads of the Night Temple, we didn't know about this at all." Yang Haohan nodded, yes. Although our Night Hall is special in that we can have multiple heads, this secret has only been passed on by word of mouth to a single person each generation. Long Qianyin snorted, "Old Yang, how did you become muddle-headed? They are undead. They are our seniors and have also made great contributions to mankind. They've also sacrificed their lives. It was already a huge problem that they had been turned into undead back then, So how can we borrow their strength now? Have you thought about it? Once they enter the battlefield, our people will definitely find out. You can't hide the truth. When that happens, what are we supposed to tell our people? Just what kind of sight will it be when a group of powerful undead enters the battlefield? And after several millennia, can you guarantee that these eternal heroes have never changed their minds after such a long time? Once they leave their place of slumber and appear outside, the most terrifying part is that they are strong, yet beyond our control, even if we don't factor in how strong they are in combat. They're our seniors, so why would they listen to the command of us juniors? Before we can even borrow their strength, we'll have already suffered a backlash. The Union faces great danger already, so we can't take any further risks. Many people were visibly moved by what Long Qianyan said. Long Xingyu nodded his head to one side as he said sternly, I agree with Temple Head Long's opinion. We cannot be rash about this. There was too much inestimable dangers involved. I also think we shouldn't use the eternal heroes so easily. With the expression of opinion from two holy knights, the members present immediately sank into their thoughts. Long Qianyan and Long Xingyu possessed great status in the Knight Temple, so they possessed extremely great influence. Although Yang Haohan had once been the head of the Temple Alliance, he remained in the headquarters, while the dragon-resisting mountain pass had always been under the command of the father and son. Their words would have a certain impact on the members from other temples. Li Jingji, I think this will work. There was a restriction to the scroll of spiritual transformation back then. That is, the undead powerhouses brought to life by the scroll of spiritual transformation can only exist for 1,000 years. Over 6,000 years have passed since then. Every temple head will actually go to pay respects to these eternal heroes. We have learnt from them that the eternal heroes have chosen to slumber in order to lengthen their lives as undead. However, around 40 years ago, their last message was that they did not have much time left. They had 5 decades at most before they would return to an eternal slumber and never wake up again. They had suggested back then that if the Alliance needed them to, they were willing to help out one last time. In other words, even if we don't use their power, they won't last more than 10 years. As a result, I agree with Temple Head Yang's suggestion. We can trust the eternal heroes completely. As for how we can use them, I believe we can find a way to cover it up. There aren't a lot of them. I believe that these eternal heroes can turn the situation around on the battlefield. I am in doubt, Ling Xiao said. As the priest temple head, he hated undead the most. He said solemnly, I agree with old Yang in mentioning this matter, but I don't think we should use his power. The undead are undead. Think about how undead survive. They borrow the powers of the dark, mingling with the auras of corpses, darkness, and all other evils. Although these eternal heroes are our seniors and have contributed significantly to humanity, they still have been undead for thousands of years already. The 2 temple heads were right. Just in case something happens, it's very likely for the Union to be doomed. Yang Haohan could not help but frown in response to what Ling Xiao said. He knew that bringing up this matter would lead to a debate, but he had never thought the debate would be so intense. He had expected Ling Xiao's objection, but Long Qianyan and Long Xingyu's fierce objection had exceeded his expectations. He originally believed that the duo would remain neutral on the matter, but who would have thought they would be the first ones to object? Long Qianyan and Long Xingyu's opinion was extremely important, because they were Long Haochen's relatives. It was very likely for their opinions to impact Long Haochen, who was the chairman. Perhaps Long Haochen's current influence over the Union was not as great as the senior powerhouses like the 6 temple heads, but he could influence the people from the bright glimmer of light in today's meeting at the very least. Aside from him, there was also Kia, Chen Ying'er and Wang Yuanyuan, 3 vice-chairwomen of the Union. Perhaps their influence was still not great enough, but if it ended in a final vote, the bright glimmer of hope would possess almost a third of all the votes. As a result, Long Haochen's opinion was critical to deciding this matter. The starry sky holy knight, Yang Haoyu, suddenly spoke at this moment. He coughed gently and immediately attracted everyone's attention. As the greatest powerhouse of the Union, his opinion was also very important. None of us can decide whether this matter is right or wrong, or good or bad, right now. It's good that everyone is discussing this, but I need to remind you all that it's no longer about the Temple Alliance, but the Temple Union. The discussion so far is discussion, but before the chairman has spoken, haven't we stepped a little bit out of our places? Yang Haoyu did not directly support Yang Haohan, nor did he state his opinion. Instead, he defended Long Haochen's authority as the chairman of the union. Actually, he failed to understand what was happening with Long Haochen today. Long Haochen had always been clever and knew how to control the situation. The meeting today was so important, so why did he remain silent as the chairman of the union, letting everyone argue among themselves? Hearing what Yang Haoyu said, Yang Haohan nodded, that's what I'm thinking as well. Let's hear the chairman's opinion first. Long Tianyin did not object to this. In his heart, Long Haochen was his grandson at the end of the day, and he really did object Yang Haohan's suggestion from the bottom of his heart, or he wouldn't have immediately retorted his suggestion after all these years of friendship. Long Xingyu frowned slightly. Who knew what he was thinking? Everyone's gazes ended up gathering on Long Haochen. Long Haosh smiled indifferently. He said, since a new union's been founded, we have to decide on any final matter together. The final voting will represent what the majority thinks. However, before more people speak their minds and we vote, I want to tell you all a story. Temple Head Yang, do you know the name of the creator of the Scroll of Spiritual Transformation? Yang Haohan was surprised. He did not expect Long Haochen to ask something like that. He instinctively shook his head and said, there's no record of it. It only said that it's very likely that the scroll was created by the necromancer, who had sowed misery and suffering into the continent in the past. I don't know why it was left behind. Perhaps it was a spoil of war when the glorious church defeated him. Long Haochen nodded, then, do any of you know the name of this necromancer of the past? Long Tianyin frowned slightly, Chairman, what's the point of this? Moreover, the necromancer of the past had appeared before the era of darkness. It's over 6,500 years from now. There are very few records that detail him. All we can confirm is that a powerful and evil necromancer existed. There's basically nothing else that's been passed down about his details. Long Haochen said, then, you all don't know. All right, let me tell you then. As he said that, he stood up slowly. With a slight flash, he arrived at the front from the back. All the powerhouses sitting at the table discovered in surprise that in that moment, Long Haochen seemed to have arrived there by crossing through space. It seemed like he had directly passed through the table, but in reality, he had used an ability similar to teleportation. His strength had increased drastically again. Yang Haoyue could not help but sigh in amazement secretly. And he discovered that it was rather difficult for him to see through Long Haochen's cultivation now. Long Haochen arrived at the front of the table and said, the necromancer, who created the scroll was called Elux. He's also the one who caused a huge disaster for humanity before the era of darkness. He gave himself a title. He called himself the Holy Necromancer, Slumbering Calamity Elux. If it were not for his existence that had created a disaster for us humans, perhaps we would not have been annihilated like we were when the demons attacked, and the era of darkness for the past 6,000 years would not have existed. However, it is humans who cultivate to become necromancers. Never have we heard about any other creature directly becoming a necromancer, right? Then, why did he lay his hands on humans and sow misery and suffering among them? The Prior Temple head, Ling Xian, said instinctively, necromancers like that must be evil. They want to destroy the world. Long Haochen smiled, Temple head Ling, we can't become entrenched in our preconceived ideas. If I tell you all that this terrifying necromancer, who had once brought a disaster to mankind, was originally of the light element, and that all of his death magic was based on the light element, would you believe me? Impossible, Long Tianyin, Long Xingyu, Ling Xiao and even Yang Haoyu and Yang Haohan all said together. They were all representatives of the element of light. Long Haochen shook his head, no, I'm telling the truth, because not only was this necromancer a light mage in the past, he was a sign of light as well, just like me. As soon as he said that, everyone fell into an uproar. For that moment, everyone looked at Long Houchen like he was a madman. Only the people of the bright glimmer of hope remained composed. Long Qianyan suddenly stood up and said angrily, "Long Houchen, do you know what you are saying? Are you arguing for this necromancer? And by using such impossible arguments?" Long Houchen looked at Long Qianyan with a brilliant gaze. He did not let up. "Temple Head Long, the truth is not decided by the loudness of your voice. Please sit down first. Since I am the chairman, I hope you can let me finish. From now onwards, please do not interrupt me, or I must ask you to leave." Long Qianyan was surprised. Clearly, he had never expected Long Houchen to speak to him like that. He could not help but become furious. "All right. I'd like to see how you ask me to leave. Are you going to lay your hands on me?" Long Houchen's eyes suddenly shone brightly. Afterwards, he sent a palm strike towards Long Qianyan from far away. Long Houchen was attacking Long Qianyan during the meeting. That was a sight many people would struggle to believe, but that was exactly what happened. Long Qianyan bellowed out furiously and hurled a first at Long Houchen. His face had reddened from anger. At the end of the day, he was a senior powerhouse of the Night Temple. Moreover, the person who had disrespected him so much was his own grandson. However, something that shocked all the powerhouses present appeared once more. Long Houchen's body suddenly became faintly golden. The gentle golden light seemed extremely comforting. A golden handprint appeared in the air from his palm strike. When Long Qianyan's furious strike was about to collide with it, Long Qianyan's body shuddered under the golden light, and afterwards, he was actually enveloped by Long Houchen's golden light. In the next moment, he actually turned into a streak of golden light and vanished. One move. Just one move. Self-incarnating domain. Li Jingji's mutter roused everyone from their shock. What did a self-incarnating domain mean? Everyone knew the answer just too well. It meant the 5th rank of the 9th step. Their chairman had actually reached the 5th rank of the 9th step. It had to be known that in the recent temple's great gathering, the strength that Long Houchen demonstrated was only of the 2nd or 3rd rank. In just 2 short months, he had actually broken through consecutively. A self-incarnating domain was something that many 9th step powerhouses could not achieve even if they used up their entire lives. For that moment, the upper echelon of the Union could not help but change how they looked at Long Houchen. Whether it was the Union or among the demons, strength tended to represent speaking authority. Houchen, Long Xingyu was both furious and surprised. However, when he made contact with Long Houchen's stern gaze, he immediately stopped speaking. He sat there with a sunken face, no longer uttering another word. Long Houchen looked at Yang Haohan and said solemnly, "According to the rules of the Union, the chairman can temporarily expel members who disrespect the chairman during a meeting from the meeting. Am I correct?" Yang Haohan nodded subconsciously. In reality, he too had been shocked by Long Houchen's actions. Long Houchen smiled plainly and said, "Temple Head Long was slightly tired, so I asked him to go rest up first. You don't have to worry." Of course no one believed Long Houchen would lay his hands on Long Qianyan. That was his grandfather after all. However, Long Houchen's actions made the powerhouses of the 6 temples re-evaluate Long Houchen and take him more seriously. The Union had only been founded recently, so in reality, many people continued to follow the methods of the Temple Alliance from before. Long Houchen and his bright glimmer of hope never used their authority in the meetings either, so not a lot of people recognized Long Houchen's position as chairman. They just knew the Demon Hunt Squad was very powerful. Most of them behaved just like when they were a part of the Temple Alliance, mainly obliging to the commands of the various temples. However, Long Houchen's actions told them without a doubt that in the current union, he was truly the greatest. And he had used his strength to demonstrate his power. He did not use the divine throne of eternity and creation in his clash with Long Qianyan, yet he was able to incapacitate Long Qianyan in a single strike and teleport him away. This strength was clearly no worse than the starry sky holy knight Yang Haoyu. Coupled with the amplification from the first divine throne in history, everyone discovered in shock that their chairman had actually reached such a great level of strength already. This discovery made them gradually forget about Long Houchen's age. They now looked at him with a bit more respect. Where did Long Qianyin go? He was right outside the meeting. However, there was not a twinge of anger on this temple head's face at all. Instead, he smiled a little. You brat. I'll settle this matter with you later. He. As he said that, the powerful divine knight of control and restraint just turned around and left calmly. How was it possible for the stunned people inside to know that Long Qianyin and Long Houchen had already agreed to use this opportunity for Long Houchen to demonstrate his might? Even Long Xingyu did not know. This only demonstrated that the duo were extremely talented at acting. Otherwise, no matter how powerful Long Houchen was, it was impossible for him to succeed in a single move. And, with his character, how could he really get angry as his grandfather? The meeting room gradually quietened down. Long Houchen said indifferently, "The story I am telling will have a great impact on how you vote later. It's the same as before. Please do not interrupt me while I am speaking, or I will ask you to leave as well." You haven't heard wrong. The holy necromancer, slumbering calamity Elux, was also a sign of light, just like me. Actually, if you think about it from a different perspective, you will find it easier to believe. Necromancers are powerful, but they are just a branch of mags. Just what kind of disaster can a necromancer with mediocre talent bring upon mankind? The answer is clearly almost nothing. The reason why Elux could do this was because he possessed enough talent and affinity for understanding. At the same time, there was enough hatred supporting his actions. He was a fallen sign of light, but why did he fall? After I learnt the whole reason for this, I have to vindicate him. The slumbering calamity back then came from us humans. We had created this disaster for ourselves. Long Houchen's narration was very fascinating. When he said that, he could not help but sigh in amazement inside. Senior Elux, you saved my life and passed your power on to me and Kia. You've already grown aware of your actions in the final moment. Sign that's the case, I will vindicate you today. Although you are already dead, I still have to make sure you can depart with a little more peace. Long Houchen and Kia were both indebted to Elux. Regardless of whether they recognized him, the favor he had given them did happen. Moreover, Elux's final repentance and deeply touched them. The current opportunity was a chance for Long Houchen to vindicate him. Everyone must find it strange as to why I know this. We need to start at the beginning to understand this. When our bright glimmer of hope was still at the commander grade, we had once received a mission to investigate the desolate hissing caverns discovered by the demons. After we had accepted the mission, it had been deemed to be incorrectly allocated, which led to a chain of events at the Demon Hunt Squad's mission tower. However, we did complete the mission. Now that Long Houchen was the chairman of the Union, there was no need to hide a few matters anymore. Moreover, the matter of the Tower of Eternity had concluded perfectly. He was not afraid of mentioning it anyway. Immediately, Long Houchen told everyone how they discovered the Tower of Eternity in the desolate hissing cavern, and became inheritors of the Tower of Eternity, as well as how they trained in the Tower of Eternity, and gradually discovered the truth about the Tower of Eternity. He almost mentioned how he died in a battle against the demons in the end, and how he was brought into the Tower of Eternity by Kia to be revived. That had basically been his greatest secret. Now that he had mentioned it, not only did he want to clear Elux's name, he also wanted the upper echelon of the Union to understand why their Demon Hunt Squad possessed such strength at such a young age. This is Elux's story. Exactly, because he had endured too much pain, and the grudge of his annihilated family that set him on a path of no return. His mistakes are inexcusable, but I need to ask you all this question. Are necromancers really born evil? Long Houchen's story was very fascinating and very touching. Especially when he mentioned how Kia carried him on her back, and went through thick and thin in the Tower of Eternity, with the bright glimmer of hope to revive him. It deeply touched the hearts of everyone present. Originally, a lot of people believed that Long Houchen possessed his current cultivation, because of his natural endowment, or because of his constitution, as a sign of light. Only when they heard his story did they understand just how much pain he had gone through as his strength increased, and why he had gone missing among the demons for so long. Long Xingyu's fists had already become pale white from clenching too hard. His nails were deeply embedded in his hands as tears flowed down his cheeks uncontrollably, dripping onto his clothes. When Long Haochen saw his father's sorrowful appearance, a strange light appeared in his eyes. At the same time, there seemed to be a faint relief. However, no one noticed this slight change on his face. That's the end of my story. That's my story. As the chairman of the union, I also believe this secret should be disclosed as my responsibility to the union. Regarding the eternal heroes, I believe that we can ask them to fight, to unleash their final power for the union. I believe our predecessors have waited a very long time for this day. However, for the sake of safety, I will go to the Night's Sacred Mountain first and confirm their situation. Only if they truly can fight, and are still clear-headed, can they be let onto the battlefield. They are the true heroes of the Alliance. I think that not only shouldn't we hide this matter from the common people, we should publicly announce it as well. Sometimes, we don't need to be overly conservative. So what if they are undead? They are the heroes of the Alliance. Our heroes have already offered their lives to the Alliance, so why must they remain hidden away when they are still fighting for the Alliance after death, such that the people they protect don't even know about them? I believe the common people will understand as long as we put in the effort into the announcement. This video will end here.